Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good in our community. And we're honored to have two amazing catalysts for change with us. We have Steve Barlow, Vice President and General Counsel, and Roshun Austin, President and CEO of the consolidated entity. We're going to talk about Neighborhood Preservation, Inc. and the Works Incorporated. How are you two doing?
Great. Thank you, Jeremy.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Let's start with some context. And Steve, let's start on your end with some background, because it is two entities coming together and creating this amazing catalyst. And so talk about Neighborhood Preservation, Inc. Let's start there, and then we'll kind of carry it forward. So Steve, give us some background on NPI.
NPI was formed a little over 10 years ago, mainly in response to the challenge of blighted properties across Memphis and the abandonment that was leading to so much distress in many neighborhoods, especially around the core of the city. In response to those challenges over the years, we've developed networking programs where we bring people together and coordinate efforts and come up with solutions that are not just a single entity or agency, but that are collaborative in nature. We've also dealt with the policy side of things when a tax sale process or a code enforcement process leads to sort of chaos in a neighborhood. We've worked on streamlining policies and administrative approaches to solving those problems. And so we've come a long way in a little over 10 years on removing some of the barriers to neighborhood revitalization. And finally, we've worked a lot on innovation, just showing the way in a small project that could potentially be duplicated in a larger citywide kind of a way. And so we've sort of done some demonstration projects. We've worked with the county to give us an abandoned house that we tore down because it was not savable, and put in a community garden, which has been thriving, and that's the beginning of a rebirth of a neighborhood or a block. So those kind of innovative strategies where we work again with neighborhood partners, government partners, nonprofits, corporate partners, and just sort of rally the troops to come up with a solution that revitalizes a neighborhood that has sort of been left behind.
Roshun, let's kind of carry it over on your end and talk about the Works Incorporated. When you talk about affordable housing and making sure that people have access to opportunities, especially for taking care of their families and single families, single parent households, especially with mothers, you do so much good. So talk about the Works Incorporated.
So the Works was initially founded in '98, specifically to address the affordable housing needs in the South Memphis area. And that included both rentals for very low income and extremely low income families, but also opportunities for homeownership for families that were low income, but more moderate in their income, and they could actually afford to get into housing. And so we've done everything around that, the housing work, the affordable housing work, including being the developer and owner of properties, a mortgage loan fund. At one point, we were a mortgage brokerage in Mississippi and Tennessee, the housing counseling piece. And we recognized in doing that work that we needed to address more than just the built space, the house itself or the apartment. We needed to address larger neighborhood revitalization issues. And so that got us involved with agencies like NPI, helping to advocate for policy, which they took lead on. So it's the networking and the policy piece of NPI, and also the innovation, which they brought us in a few years ago to actually use what skills we brought to the table in developing to actually do a pretty large project in Frazier, a multifamily development, an anchor-based strategy around schools.
When you talk about collaboration, I'll let each of you kind of carry it forward, but Steve, let's bounce back on your end and talk about why partnering, why consolidating, why working together. Give us a little bit of that background.
Well, sure, Jeremy. The challenge in community development and neighborhood revitalization in Memphis for many years has been a sort of a disjointed approach. There are many historical reasons for that, which I won't go into now. But many of us who have had a vision for a more coordinated approach to community development in Memphis have long desired to have a community development corporation that had a citywide reach and that really had high capacity. And so the Works has been developing capacity for years. NPI has been developing capacity for years. And we found ourselves several years ago working very closely on a number of projects, some more on a policy level, like Roshun was working with us closely to advocate at City Council for changes in the way that affordable housing pilots are done in the city of Memphis. And we had done a lot of policy research and could back her up on that. And so we were working on policy stuff together. We were working on a neighborhood revitalization projects together. We were kind of doing the national research and bringing in the best practices for how do you do certain activities in neighborhoods. And they were on the ground with contractors doing the job. And so what we began to see was just this natural convergence of our interests and of our activities, and our teams got to know each other really well. And Roshun and I both go way back all the way to graduate school in Stan Highland's, applied anthropology program at the University of Memphis. And, we learned in some of those grad school classes about how some cities have these citywide agencies that have high capacity and that own property that they're able to generate revenues to support themselves on. And so the vision of a coordinated approach to community development is something that Roshun and I and many others have dreamed about. And so to me, it's just really, in a sense, it's a dream come true. I've always wanted to see Memphis get to that place where we had a high capacity, high performing, self-sustaining community development corporation that was available to do projects in any neighborhood where it made sense to do projects with any neighborhood partners who were already there and wanted some assistance from some high capacity, hopefully, well-positioned organization to provide that assistance. So that's where I'm heading with it. I'm very excited about the opportunity. It's been sort of a natural growth, and we are, feel great about what's coming next.
Yeah.
Carry that forward, Roshun, on your end, because talk about what makes you excited. You hear high performing, high capacity, self-sustaining, some of those words, which obviously are very important for, nonprofit world, but also very important for being able to create positive change in our community. So share a little bit of what makes you excited on your end.
Yeah, so Steve and I it was NPI and the Works and other agencies across town, and we were having a lot of these meetings with these national groups. And I was thinking together we have those capacities. There was always something missing in community development corporations in Memphis. So I would have to outsource everything legal to a third party, a firm, for instance. And it's a very specialized field. And so and often those attorneys that we had to do business were not even in our city or our county, sometimes not even in our states, because we didn't have attorney groups that were specializing in community development legal work. And then I had a friend, my former graduate school classmate who had become an attorney, understood community development on the ground, having been in a CDC in the mid 90s in the early movement in Memphis. So understood that side of the work too, and the legal side, and then having a team of people that could go to the state and advocate policy, and even at the national level. And so I said, hey, we could be really, really great together, and we can look like those other groups. It's like I don't want to really use the word envious, but you look at a group in Chicago that, they may be the largest landowner in a distressed neighborhood, or they're the biggest lender, and it's a CDC. And we didn't have those type of capacities in Memphis. And so we've seen stalls in our growth as an industry. And when we don't grow, that means our neighborhoods that are already distressed 20 years ago are just becoming more distressed. They're declining further. And so the city does not benefit. The entire community doesn't benefit if you don't have the skills that you need at the table to help move those neighborhoods around, because the market industry, the private market, it's not going to take that over. That's not why they exist. They have to generate some revenue. They can't take these losses that we take in our industry to try to prime markets in distressed neighborhoods. And so I was real excited about the opportunities. I have to admit, it's not the first time we've talked about it in the last 25 plus years. And I would push back. I did like those things about other entities, but we had a different history in Memphis about how groups grew up, either from a top-down initiative from someone out of town or mostly grassroots. And so it was this turf issue. And so you didn't really want to feel like you were putting someone else out. They were really bought into their ideas in their neighborhood. And then there's such limited funding. Our source of funding locally, both at the government level and with philanthropy, is so limited. And so you were always competing. It was always a fight with the next CDC. And so we weren't always accomplishing the goals we like to see in neighborhoods.
I think it's important too that, you identify the gaps so you see those firsthand, but you also can look at other cities like Chicago and say, okay, this is how they're tackling that. And that's how they're coming up with a solution. And so you can benchmark against that, you can compare and contrast, and you can create something special that can create that change here locally. And like you said, coming in with an abundant mindset versus a scarcity mindset where you're fighting against each other versus really collaborating and working together with a higher purpose. Let's go ahead and stay on your end, but give us kind of an update on some of the projects that you're working on.
Oh, so we're pretty busy right now. I just realized we have all these overlapping meetings, and I'm glad Steve is here to lead those because I can't make it to all and he can't make it to all. So upcoming, we will be doing another multifamily in Frazier, across from an existing multifamily we finished last December, and that's 100% occupied now. We don't have a name for it officially. It's now 2 apartment communities where they're not anymore because we've knocked them down. It's going to be new construction. It was Peachtree South and Pleasant View East. And so we'll come back of that 6 acres with a new development for low-income families. We'll also be starting a small subdivision in South Memphis. It's a former Lincoln Junior High site. We purchased the surplus land from the school system earlier this year. And so it's a 35 unit shared equity model of homeownership. And so there'll be a couple of duplexes. And so there will be individuals who will be able to buy a building, a house or a duplex, and they live on one side and rent out the other. So they go into this with some wealth. We will continue our mortgage program, all of the good work of MPI, the Strategic Code Enforcement Management Academy, the Blight Elimination Steering Team. And then I'll have Steve talk more about the work we're doing with the city and county on the federal assistance that we're receiving for emergency rental assistance. And I know there are other things we're doing. We're finishing up a park. And I guess people will know soon we'll be doing Northside High School. And we're doing some work in partnership with the Klondike Smoky City CDC in Klondike. We're doing minor home repair there. And so there are a lot of projects happening. And I absolutely know I forgot something. Oh, and then we still do our food work. We'll have a mobile grocery, hopefully soon. We're just waiting on, it's a supply chain issue. So they're fabricating our trailer in Wisconsin. We've been waiting a while. We got the F-450 to pull it when it gets here. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to launch that grocer in addition to our existing grocer in January.
Nice. Steve, what would you add to that? Well, I'll go to the sort of the softer side of some of the stuff we're involved in. One really exciting project that we haven't talked a lot about yet is we're planning some gardening and tree planting and public use opportunities in the Washington Bottoms area, which is in Midtown, just east of Cleveland. We have a short-term lease of the land from the current owner. It's going to allow us to clean it up and make it a useful place for people who live nearby, as well as to do some gardening and some tree planting. While I'm talking about trees, I have to tell you, I'm still very excited about the opportunity to plant native hardwood trees on vacant lots where there's very low future development value in Memphis neighborhoods. It's really an important thing to do. It's affordable. We have now several thousand trees that are growing, getting ready to go in the ground. We have another 3,000 that we're going to pot in March with Wolf River Conservancy and Urban Earth and the Atlas Organics, which used to be the Compost Ferry. One of the outgrowths of that work has been we're exploring the opportunity to actually set up a mill where we would take in logs, which is when people cut down a big tree in the city. We could take those logs and turn them into usable lumber, not for construction, probably more for finishes and for products and stuff like that, as well as deconstruct houses in such a way that we can reuse a lot of the timber. A lot of houses in Memphis are built with 100-year-old plus timber, which cannot be replaced. And people love to use that timber that's taken from houses when they're removed, or buildings when they're removed, for new products. And so we're actually exploring that. So we continue to push on the innovative stuff. We're also pushing on some policy work. We're working with a statewide collaborative now to try to adopt the Uniform Airship Properties Act to make it easier for properties that have confusing chains of title and multiple owners to transfer clearly to the appropriate heir. And also some of the vacant school buildings. There are some policies around vacant schools at the state level that could be better and could make it easier for vacant schools to be reused to benefit neighborhoods. So we're continuing to push on that front. And Roshun already mentioned the Strategic Code Enforcement Management Academy, but I'm especially proud of that because it's an opportunity for our code enforcement team in Memphis, our University of Memphis Law School, and a lot of our practitioners in the community development field to link up with national experts who also help teach it, and share with a national audience. One of our most recent webinars, we had people representing 20 different cities from all over the country. And so we're, this pandemic has led to a lot of people using, virtual meetings to expand their operations. And we've certainly done that with our Strategic Code Enforcement Management Academy. We're doing more than ever on teaching people. And it's not just that we're saying, hey, do it like Memphis. What we're doing is we're saying, we need to have a national conversation, and we're leading the national conversation on that. And we're bringing in the experts from around the country to tell us and to tell each other how we can be moving this stuff forward. I know I need to stop talking, but one other thing I want to mention is the rental assistance. That was another pandemic response that MPI had. We were already in a good position working with landlords and with affordable housing providers and with a lot of tenant advocacy groups to help deploy rental assistance money when the federal government decided to deploy it, and when the city and county governments decided to find a local nonprofit partner to help lead it. And so we've been leading the legal side of the eviction settlement program for Memphis, which has deployed over 30 million in 2021 in rental assistance to needy folks who would otherwise have ended up being evicted.
Yeah. Wrap up with how the community can help, and then obviously where do we go to learn more? So website, social media, phone number, where do we go? So how do we help and where do we go?
So the website is The Works, www.theworkscdc.org. How the community can help in the neighborhoods where we work. We'd love to see people get out, volunteer, give us input of what they want to see in their neighborhoods, get involved in some of our initiatives, including the Strategic Code Enforcement Management Academy. Come join us when we're having fun at concerts. Join us on our cycling so that you get to see Memphis in a different way and find opportunities for you to volunteer. And the phone number is 901-946-9675. And Steve, we still have MPI, so give us that website too.
npimemphis.org. That's npimemphis.org. The other thing that you could do is invite us to your group, to your church. We go to Sunday schools, we go to neighborhood association meetings, we go to birthday parties, whatever, retirement homes. And we love to talk about what's going on with the fight against blighted properties and with neighborhood. People just need to hear about what's going on, and so that they can figure out on their own how they want to connect. And we love to go out and talk. We'll talk about community engagement. We'll talk about reclaiming and reusing vacant properties, neighborhood organizing. We have a great team with the Works and NPI together now. We can talk about just about anything to do with community revitalization, and we'd love to. So give us a chance to come and talk to your group virtually or in person.
Yeah. Well, Steve, Roshun, thank you for all you do. You and your amazing team, greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.